And welcome to another DesignBais webinar series. Today we are looking at eXpress reporting and cabinets. If anyone can hear me out there, can you please just send me a message in chat just to let me know that you can hear me okay? Okay, I've got somebody that's sent through a message to say that they can hear me, so I will move on. Just as a matter of interest, release 6 went up on our new website last night, so all of the webinars are being recorded and referenced through the support page on our site if you're interested. Right, so we're going to start with Express. I'll build a very quick report with Express and then talk about the field properties that are behind that, so you get an idea of how to set up your existing DesignBais application to use Express Report Writer. First thing I want to do is select the file that I want to base the report on. So in this case, I'm going to select the client file. When I do that, Express on the left-hand side displays all of the field properties or dictionaries that are available to me. And you can see that some of those dictionaries have a folder icon against it. That means that the dictionary above it, in this case client code, also supplies the key to the client sales file. And then I can open that folder and see the dictionaries that are available to me in the client sales file. So this is taking place of the I types, and the dictionary translates the F correlatives that you've used in the past to get into additional files. We've gone very much the view style, view approach, I suppose, to the way we display dictionaries in Express. So once you've defined the relationship between a dictionary and a file, then Express can represent that visually, I suppose is the best way to say that. So to get down here, you can see I've got a blank report with nothing on it, a blank panel. If I select client code, if I just click on the client code up there in the top off this dictionary list, you'll see that it's put that on the report on the left-hand side. It's effectively just gone and got the first 10 records. So you can see that there is a example drop down here which gives me the first 10 or the 50, 100, 150, 200 records found, which allows me to just build my report, and I get a view of what the report will look like without actually going out and producing the selects, which may take some time depending on the size of the database. These 10 records that have been displayed here are still part of my security profile. So before it shows me those 10 records, it checks to see whether or not I can actually see those 10 records. So that way you don't have a situation where people that are using the Express Report Writer get to see things that they're not supposed to see in this template structure. So the next thing I suppose I want to do is put in the client name on that. So I've got the client code and the client name now just by selecting the client name. If I don't want that particular item on the report, I can just click on the same dictionary again and it will remove that item from the report if it exists on the report. You'll see here that these, I have these red labels. They're not actually dictionaries, they are actually groupings of fields. In Release 6 we've added the ability to group dictionaries together, and I'll just explain a little bit about that now, and I'll explain how the relationships are built in the field properties as well. So this is the field properties screen. You can see here is the field DBC client code. It's the client code dictionary for the client file. It's attribute 0, so it's the key to the file. All the standard stuff up the top as far as whether it's left, right, justified and all that sort of stuff, the alphanumeric, whether it's uppercased and all that. But then we get down to the bottom to the Express reporting. And you can see there is a tick box here that says include this field in Express reporting. So this gives me the ability to nominate particular fields within my file that are available in Express. If I've got hundreds of dictionaries in the file and I don't want to go through one by one, I can select the list all field properties option from the field properties screen. When I do that, down the bottom of the screen it gives me a list of dictionaries, and you can see here where I've got the tick for Express reporting. So I can say, in this case, the client code, ticket to turn that off, or if I want to turn off the client name, I can click that to turn that off, so it doesn't appear in Express. So this is a nice quick way of going through my dictionaries and say, yes, I'll have that address 3 field, or no, I won't have that address 3 field. So you can also see here that I've got provides the key for file DB client sales. So whenever on an Express report I have DBC client code, or the client code as far as the end user is concerned, so whenever the client code appears on an Express report or in the side menu option as far as Express is concerned, I can then provide information into the client sales file. Now the key to the client sales file might be derived in a subroutine if it's a multi-part key or something like that, and you want to extract components of the key, or you want to build a key based on certain values in the client file apart from the client code. Then you can do so in this subroutine here. You might have a situation where you've got to read this file first, then read another file after that. You can have that situation as well. And there's also a subroutine to define the alternate key. So you might have a situation where you've got client sales in an active directory, and then you might have client sales in an archive folder. So you can define those in that situation, plus have the key derived for the main file and the alternate file if you like. And you can see here that the client code has an Express group name of name. Now the Express group, I'll just open up another tab quickly. The Express group comes off the file properties. So if we have a look at the DB client file, you'll see down the bottom of here I've got in my Express group names name and contact. So effectively I've divided my the fields for the client file up into 2 main groupings, name and contact. Any field that has not been assigned to either name or contact groups go into a bucket called miscellaneous. If I don't have any group names specified in the file, then all the files just get grouped in all of the fields get displayed in alphabetical order. So if you have small supporting files, like I had with the client sales file where there's only 3 or 4 dictionaries, you don't group those, so you just leave those. So there would be no grouping as far as the file properties is concerned. When we see that then in the Express report writer, we don't have any grouping names there. If I have any groups at all, I will have the group names that are specified plus any dictionaries that don't fall into that grouping will automatically go into a group called miscellaneous. Okay, so let's go back to the field properties again. I'm sorry. And this time I want to have a look at the DBC account manager. And you can see here that the account manager is attribute 25 of my client record, and it provides the key to the executive file. So in theory, if I come back to my Express report writer, down here you can see account manager. It provides the key to the executive file. So I can add fields from the executive file to my report. And you can see here that the executive has a field in it called executive class, and it provides the key to the executive class file. So then the executive class, I can get the executive class description and add that to my report if I like. And DesignBais will work out how to do that on the fly based on the rules that are set up within the field properties. So if I've got an order entry module to my application, and this instead of client was orders, and then in my orders file I've got a client code, then I can get the whole dictionary structure for the client file, including all the way down to the executive class. So for the orders, then I could put orders by executive class. As I'm listing the orders, I could put the class description or the executive class on there, so I could produce a listing of orders by executive class without having to do any extra work to produce that. It's just a matter of defining my dictionaries correctly when and you don't have to do that at the start. You can define your dictionaries, build your application, and then go back and define those links if you like for the Express Report Writer module. So I'll just get rid of class description for the moment, and we'll look at the say the month to date. Actually, I'll close all those off, and I'll just get name. I've got street address 1, street address 2, so that's a multi-value part 1, so attribute 3, 1 if you like, and then attribute 3, 2. Or I could just produce street address, which is a multi-value field. So when the report is produced, wherever there is a multi-valued street, it will give me the blank line. So I'll just produce that so we can see the output of that. So there you go. There's the report produced, client code, client name, the street address, and here where there is a multi-value, the multi-value will produce the line split. There are certain things that you can do. I can say normalize multiple values as far as the street address is concerned. So when this report is produced and then sent to a spreadsheet, the street address that did have multiple values will be flattened. So I'll get rid of that street address, and I'll just put street address line 1 and line 2 there. I've got town and the zip code. Now you can see there that the zip code has put a total down the bottom of that. That's because the zip code in my database is a numeric field. So if you don't want that to occur, click on the zip code heading, and down here it says total this column, and you can turn that off, submit that, and that totaling's gone. But there are situations, like if I add, say, now the month to date and the year to date sales, where I want those to be totaled. And you can see that this template, as I added those two fields, I'll just do that again, you can see that the template width grows to accommodate the report. So the form is actually redisplayed, and the form gets wider as you add more values to the report. And in theory, there isn't a limit. There is a mechanical limit of 600 fields that you can add to a report, but in most cases you're not going to have files that will support 600 fields in this type of reporting structure. I wouldn't have thought. Okay, so let me produce that now with the month-to-date and year-to-date sales. So what that is doing now is that is effectively going off and reading those sub-files to produce this report. So you can see now that I've got the client code, the client name, the street address, town, city, and now the month-to-date and year-to-date sales, these being extracted from a secondary file. Close that down. So the next thing to do would be put some sorting on this, I suppose, to try and make some sense of these month-to-date and year-to-date sales. And ideally, it'd be nice to do that by probably the executive class that we were looking at before, and maybe the account manager as well. So if I put the class description on the report, that's added that to the end. So I can click on that, and that's showing me at the moment that that's down the bottom. It's the last column. So I can just click where I want that to go, and that's now moved that up to the first column. I've got these sort order boxes here. So if I click on that box, it gives me, this is the first sort that I am defining. It's an A to Z direction type, and do I want it to break when the value changes? In this case, I can click that and it changes that to yes to say yes, I want to break. If I click it again, I'll get yes plus a page. So that gives me whenever the class description changes, I will get a page break on the report. So I'll just submit that. And you can see that I'm now getting break totals over here on the right-hand side against the month-to-date and the year-to-date sales when this description changes. But I'm also getting account manager repeated, and then the account manager total, and then the group leader repeated. So if I go into the class description and say I just want to suppress repetition, so I'll only get the first value and the break value now on that report. So that's starting to look a little bit more like what I would have liked to have got. I can also now add the actual account manager, because it'd be nice to know who the physical account manager is within this. So under executive, I've got executive name. So I'll add the executive name to the report now. And there really isn't that much of a penalty in adding the name as opposed to the code. It's because it's all worked out on the fly. The end user doesn't have to worry about which table it comes from or anything like that. DesignBais looks after the actual mechanics of producing this report and normalizing the structure on the fly. So I'll have a look at name now. We'll make name the second column on the report. We'll sort that, so that's now the second sort, and I'll page break that as well. I'd also be interested to see from the year-to-date sales who is the largest client in each one of those, for each of those executives. So down on the year-to-date sales, I'll make that the third sort just by clicking the third. In this case, I want to change the direction of that, so I'll make that numeric largest to smallest, and I won't page break on that because won't break because I don't want every year-to-date value changing that. I will suppress the repetition on the executive name. If I'm looking for particular executive, I could say equal to Fred, and or equal to, open up another row, equal to George if I wanted to do it that way. I won't, I'll just see all of them in this case. So I'll submit that. So now you can see that I am getting some reports now with the account manager, and this is just in this 10 record example that I'm looking at. If I say, well, I really am not getting a decent understanding of the report because there might only be one record into each of the breaks, I can then say, well, just show me the first 50 records, and that'll grab the first 50 records off the file that match my security profile and show me those. So I get a much better understanding of how the actual report's going to be structured. So you can see there I've got the class description, the executive name, all of the clients for the executive total, and I'll scroll across, and then we can see I've got the month-to-date and year-to-date sales for that as well. So produce that. Now this box is not the fastest in I/O either. It's only a single disk drive. It's effectively not much bigger than a PC, so it's got very ordinary I/O. So now you can see my report. The account manager class description, the actual executive name of Andrew Morris in this case, all of the clients, year-to-date sales running in a descending order. And as I page through these, you can see that I've got the break there for Andrew Morris, new page, and then there's the break for Bill and Can and Jim Armstrong and Julie, and then the account manager as a class description, that break. And then the next one is the group leaders and their totals. So you can see it's actually very easy to put a report together. Yeah, somebody's made the comment that zip code is MD2 on the report. It's probably a bogus dictionary. It's probably got an output conversion on a report set up in the dictionary. That's why the zip codes come out as an MD2, if anyone's wondering. Thanks for pointing that out. So I'll go back to the start of this, and like any design-based report, because the client code has a clickable event associated with it, I can click on the client code and then bring up the inquiry in this case for that particular client, and that's every design-based report has that capability. And I'll just explain quickly how that is done. I'll just call back the client code. Have a look at the client code here. I've got the process to invoke on a report click is this particular form as a layered form and also in inquiry mode. And then I want to pass whatever value is clicked on the Express report, or any report for that matter. I want to pass it into the client code on that particular field, on that particular form. Now, it doesn't have to be a form, it can be a program, so then within the program you can apply some logic to say, okay, in this situation, what report were they running, what screen do I then call. There's also functions in DesignBais now. When you leave a report, you can update when you leave a subscreen, you can update a report, so you can start using reports as worksheets if you want to. But that's for another session. So if we go back to our Express report now, I can start dressing it up by putting some headings on it. Client by executive, close enough. Actually, I don't need the footer. I can never really think of one there because DesignBais does a lot of that naturally for me anyway. This A4 is the size of the standard output A4 landscape, and that actually comes out of the parameters. I'll just talk about those briefly in the Express setup. So you can see down here, we'll just look at the Express templates, the Express sections to start with. The Express report template file name is Express template. So when somebody saves a report, it will go into the file, in this case Express template, but you can name that file whatever you like. Express report temporary data file, in this case I've called it Express temp. Now what that is that when DesignBais normalizes the transaction data, or in this case client data associated with a report. So this has had to be normalized because I've had to get the sales, I've had to sort by sales, I've had to get the executive name and the class descriptions and all of those, and then sort by those particular values. DesignBais creates a file to produce all those, to store that temporary normalization. Particularly when there's multi-values involved and you actually want to normalize the multi-values. Then the Express temporary data file is used for that. So it's worthwhile making that file a reasonable size that complements the size of the data files that you think your end users are going to be reporting against. The Express temporary file small, this Express mini temp, is actually what gets used for this normalization in these templates. So we're only ever dealing in 50 records. So make that file small I wouldn't make it any more than a modulo of a couple of hundred frames. So that then allows that file to be selected very quickly. The Express report style group, so all reports produced in Express in this particular setup, in this particular account, is going to use the style group DBI rep. So that sets the standard styles and the overlay colors and things like that, the heading colors. And my default paper size in this case is A4 landscape. I would recommend that you set up a landscape as the default as opposed to portrait. And whenever you, regardless of what you fill in up here as far as the cabinets is concerned, and we will talk about cabinets shortly, I would make sure that this gets filled in and submit the record. None of this up here is mandatory. So effectively, whenever I'm looking at this structure, I'm running against the mini temp file, and it doesn't always do that, depending on whether there needs to be normalization. DesignBais makes the choice, or the Express Report Hub makes the choice as to whether the request needs to be normalized, and if it does, then it uses those temporary files. I'll just produce this report again very quickly, and one of the things that is important in Express Report Writer is the ability to get to Excel. So you can see that there's the header client listing with sales by executive. It's put the page number. I've got who requested the report, the date that was produced. You could probably put something in the footer if you think that's appropriate. So if I select the XLS button there, I've got two screens active, so it's asking me to download it and open it up, and I'll just whiz that into the window. So you can see in Excel we effectively just open it up as a CSV file, but what it has done is it has put back the detail that it has extracted on the report. So the report has account manager and Andrew Morris, but no further detail. In Excel, that's not very practical, because you actually, if you want to sort these variables, say the year-to-date sales within Excel, you actually do need these to be there, or otherwise you end up with great big blank spaces, and you don't know who the executive or the account manager is. So all of those situations where there's been a suppressed repetition are put back as far as the Excel report is concerned. So it always makes sure that the data is complete, and then you can actually do something with it. There's also now in version 6 the convert to PDF at this point. I can email the report to myself, print it to the printer, and store the report permanently, which brings us to the next point in this webinar, which is the cabinets. I will, just before I do that, I just wanted to show you quickly, say here in the class description, if I say I want that to be equal to ACC, so anything that has a value of ACC in the description, so submit that. It just puts an asterisk up there against the class description to let you know that the column now has some selection criteria against it. It doesn't actually run that selection criteria here to build the template. The reason for that is that could take quite some time. If you're on a large transaction file with 10 million records, that might take 4 or 5 minutes to do the select, to find the single record that you're looking for. It's not practical to do at this point. It's practical to do that once the user produces the report and has committed to the template. So that's why we just put an asterisk there, and there is a note here to say asterisk appended to the column indicates the presence of selection criteria. Now if I turn that off and produce the report, I get this warning that says you have not specified any selection criteria. So in case the file has, again, 10 million records in it, and pardon me, you're going to produce a report which is 20 or 30,000 pages long, this just provides you a warning that says, hang on a minute, before you do this, it may be worthwhile adding some selection criteria. Okay, so I'll just produce this report again, and then I'll talk about the cabinets. Cabinets is effectively a storage mechanism for reports. We use cabinets a lot in a lot of DesignBais applications to store end-of-month reports. So during an end-of-month process, you can run your reports directly to a cabinet as opposed to running directly to a printer or directly to a hold file. Cabinets is effectively an organized hold file, if you like, for those people that have used hold files. So here I can say store this report permanently. Here are my available cabinets. So I say general reporting, and in the general reporting cabinet I have some available drawers. I've got a temporary drawer which is which everybody has. DesignBais, if you have access to a cabinet and a drawer within that cabinet, then you'll automatically have a temporary folder, a temporary drawer within that cabinet. And temporary drawers get purged at regular intervals. So if I say, no, I want that to go into my webinar reports drawer, I can grab a description, I can add a description, webinar on the 9th of the 1st. I can say I want this to be accessed for me only, I'm the only one that can see this, or I can turn that off and then assign it to users that belong to particular user groups, which is nice if I want to distribute reports as well. So I could have a drawer here which is reports of interest or key indicator reports that somebody in the organization produces, and then says, well, I'll give them to everybody that in this case is a developer. So for the moment I'll just leave that to me only. I can say, well, I want that to purge in 12 days time, so that report will be removed from the cabinet if it's been there for longer than 12 days. Or I can set sorry, I went plus 12 to get that. That's how that occurred. Or I could say remove it in 12 days time as well. So submit that. So that report is now sitting in a cabinet. So let's have a look at cabinets and how they're created. So if I go into Express, there's cabinets option within that. Now again, you can split these options out. This is the way we organize it within the DesignBais menu structure, but this is just called, this particular form is called DBI Palms M10, which is showing up down the bottom of the screen, and you can just add that to your own menu structure if you like. And you can also apply styling to this if you want to. You can say run the Express option with my style, so it'll change the fonts and the background colors and stuff. Likewise with the cabinets you can do the same thing. So the cabinets is DBI Palms M30 in this case. So if we have a look at general report, webinar reports, there's my webinar from the 9th of the 1st today. So I can come back in here at any particular point in time, select that, and I'm back in that particular report. As I said, this is very useful for end of month reports, so select end of month, and then the drawer is actually the end of month. And there are ways that you can programmatically create new drawers and new reports within those drawers, so you can have a situation where every day you replace the same report or you load a new report into the cabinet. Your end of month reports go automatically into a cabinet against the period. The end of year reports can go in against an end of year cabinet. That's entirely up to you. There is code examples in the manual on how to set up reports to run directly to cabinets. So it's worthwhile to have a look at as well. In the Express setup, I've got Express cabinet descriptions. So my general reporting cabinet is a pick file, a multi-value file called DB Cabinet 1 in this case. And the groups with access are developers, evaluation, and public users. So I can go into that and change. I'll get rid of the public users access from that and submit that. And you can see now that it's only has access to those two user groups. groups with delete access. So you might have a situation where you want to delete drawers in cabinets. So I could set up groups with delete access there. If it's blank, everybody has access to delete it. So it's a bit silly in this case to have groups with access and no groups with delete access. If I have groups with access, then in this case this is blank, this is not all users. I can add users to this. So I could add Jamie Keenan to this particular cabinet as well. So if Jamie is not part of those two user groups, he will also get access to it. And likewise, users with delete access. Is the cabinet active? So I might have situations where I'll run a cabinet for a period of time and then I may want to make it inactive. I can do that. Days to purge the temporary drawers. So as I said, every user gets a temporary drawer within a cabinet. So I can say that days to purge is 8 days for temporary drawers unless the user has specified another date or another duration. The cabinet user administrator in this case is me. That means that I've got the ability to copy cabinets around. So somebody, Joe Bloggs, has been with the company for 5 years and he's produced a whole lot of reports. They're all me-only reports and they're all sitting in his cabinet and his temporary drawers, and then he leaves tomorrow and he's replaced by Harry Bloggs, and Harry, so as an administrator I can go into the cabinet and say all reports that were Joe Bloggs, please now make them available to Harry Bloggs. So that way you don't have situations when people leave that nobody can get access to their reports. So again, I have a general reporting, an end of month, and a key indicators cabinet. And really, to create another cabinet is quite simply a matter of adding the detail, creating a pick file, multi-value file, and then adding the name of that, and then that becomes available to whoever you want that to be available to. So when I'm in my cabinet against my general reporting webinar drawer, you can see that if I actually want to now print these, I can select that one and say print the selected. I can email the selected. If I select all and print selected, it will join those two jobs into a single print job and produce one report out of it. So even if you do produce your end of month reports and for some unknown reason you actually want to physically print them, you can print them to a cabinet and then select all and print selected. The reason we moved to cabinets in the first place is because typically browsers are not great with printing. They're certainly not great with automated printing. So if you're running an application that is browser based, it is best to have a mechanism that allows me to store the reports and then produce the reports to the printer at some later stage if I need to. You can see here that all of these reports are completed, but I might have a situation where I run a report to a cabinet and that report may take 10 or 15 minutes because it's a complicated report on a million record file. I can come back into cabinets and see where it's at a particular point in time. I can still, once 5 pages have been produced, then I can view that report. So I can actually see the report in here before the report is finished. And so this gives me the ability to produce reports, let them run in the background, and then come back and watch their progress. I can run any report produced in DesignBais to a cabinet directly, as opposed to going directly through to the previewer. So there's really not much more to. Oh, actually, there is. I'm terribly sorry. I'll just go back into. I'll just produce a very simple, very quick report. I can save these particular Express templates. So I say I really like this particular report. I'm going to give this my I'll save this template and I'll call it the webinar on the 9th of the 1st, 12. And I can say access for me only, so that'll put it up here in my list, or I can say give it to development people in the development group, and all the grouped reports show up down here. So submit that. So at any time in the future I can come back in and say open and grab that particular report, and that will refresh that template at that particular point. We are working on having these saved templates be available from standard menu options, and any selection criteria that you've selected will be available at runtime, so the end user can change the selected criteria, particularly if you've selected from dates and to dates. So that's a future development, and which isn't actually that far away. The other thing with version 6 now is that I can actually also produce a summary of the report. So I can produce the detail, and if I have any breaks at all, the summary will give me the summary only version of that report. So that's about the end of this webinar. Are there any questions? I'll just stay on for a minute or two just to see. Somebody's asked how eXpress column widths are controlled. They are initially controlled off the dictionary or the field property, but I can come into this particular column here and then just change that, say, to 150, which is 150 pixels, and you can see now that the year-to-date sales column is much wider. Can report click stack be multi-valued? That is in response to when you click on a client code, it then goes and runs a particular screen. If you want to do anything fancy with that, then call a program, and then you can do whatever you want within the actual programs that you call. We don't stack multiple screens as a default, if that's the answer to the question. If that answers the question. Sorry, I'm just waiting to see whether there's anybody else that. No? Okay, well, thank you very much, and we have another webinar in a couple of days. This webinar has been recorded and it will be on our website in the next 48 hours. Well, thank you very much for your attendance, and I look forward to talking to you again in the next webinar. Thank you.